Morning, everyone. Welcome to another Rookie Card Collector 123 video. In today's episode, we're going to finish up the Road to 310 series, how I built the most diverse Baseball Hall of Fame rookies collection of all time on a budget. I expect that this will be the final episode today. I have three more players I want to cover, and a lot of cards to go through for those three players. I made quite a few adjustments over the years, quite a few upgrades to the collection, in my opinion. Again, for me, an upgrade was something earlier than the item that I had before. So not condition upgrades, but or value upgrades, but just the earlier the better in terms of my Hall of Fame rookie collection. So the first player I'm going to cover today is Ted Williams. And Ted Williams was a tough one to go after initially. His very well documented rookie card is in the 39 play ball set, the black and white series. And that one was, for my budget back then, was quite expensive. So I was always on the lookout for one, obviously lower grade condition. But before I ever ended up picking up a play ball, I actually found a 1939 Gaudi Premium on eBay. Those are the oversized cards, also black and white. The one I picked up was not the Canadian version, was the US version, which is a little bit easier to find than the Canadian, but still far lower population and much tougher to find than the 39 play ball. But back then, because it was not a mainstream card and it was oversized, not a lot of collectors were after that one as opposed to the play ball, so I actually got it a lot cheaper than what the play ball card would have cost me. So I picked up the Gaudi Premium, which was from 1939. And I would have that one in my collection for a few years, 3 or 4 years. Moving forward up to around 2010 or so, doing some searches on eBay looking at Ted Williams items. And I came across a 1938. It was not an individual piece, but it was a team premium. And it was a Minneapolis Millers, which was the last minor league team which Williams played on before coming up to the Red Sox in Boston in 1939. He played for the Millers in 38. And he actually went to spring training with the Red Sox in 38, fully expecting to make the major league team, and had a great spring and probably deserved the spot on the roster. But because the Red Sox had three veteran outfielders on that club, as they broke spring training that year, they opted to go with those three outfielders. They sent Williams to Minneapolis. And if memory serves me correctly, I did not check this before coming on here today. I believe he won the hitting Triple Crown in Minneapolis in 1938. He went down to the minors very upset and took it out on the minor league pitching, and made certain that in 1939 there would be no doubt that he would be up with the Major League Red Sox. But the 38 Minneapolis Millers, it was an oversized team premium. This would have been something that was sold at the minor league ballpark. And it was probably about 8.5 by 11 or so, and had the players in 3 rows identified at the bottom. And Williams was tall, so he was standing in the back row. And was 1 year earlier than my Gaudi Premium, so I went ahead and sold the Gaudi Premium and picked up this Minneapolis Millers team photo, which was substantially less expensive than the Gaudi was. So I saved a chunk of money there. I got a year earlier Ted Williams item and was very happy with that purchase. Never really expecting to get anything earlier, but always, of course, on the lookout. And on eBay, a couple of years later, I think it was 2011, 2012 era time frame, I came across a listing for a San Diego minor league postcard, team postcard, real photo postcard from 1937. and it pictured Ted Williams. The year before he played in Minneapolis, he was in San Diego. I believe he played 2 seasons in San Diego. 36 was sort of a part-time introduction to the league there, and then 37 he played all year with San Diego. And the real photo postcard included Williams. And that one went for, at that time, quite a bit of money. I think it was around $3,000. But it was a year earlier than the Minneapolis Millers team premium oversized that I had. So fortunately for me, I was able to pick up the San Diego real photo postcard, and that would be my final representation in the collection for Ted Williams. A super rare item, as far as I know. I never came across another one. I think there might be a second one out there somewhere, but probably not more than those two. And to this day, wish I never sold it. Wish I had it back, but can't go back in time. So that was my Ted Williams final rookie in my collection. Next one I'm going to talk about is Harry Wright. So Harry Wright is one of the earliest 19th century Hall of Famers. Wright was primarily a manager in the U.S. Him and his brother George Wright, both in the Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame, came over to the United States from England and were top cricket players back there. George Wright was younger. So yeah, George Wright was a teenager when he left England. Harry Wright was a little bit older. They came to the U.S. and they got in very early on the baseball platform. And both of them were involved on the 1869 Cincinnati Red Stockings, which is many consider to be the first all-professional baseball team ever. And got into the National Association, which was the predecessor to the National League, beginning in 1871. But in 1869, the Red Stockings had a phenomenal season. I believe they won over 100 games and lost only a few all season long. And Harry Wright was the manager. George Wright was the shortstop. And then, needless to say, very tough to find any items for either one of these two guys. But I'm going to focus on Harry Wright. So, looking for Harry Wright's stuff, I knew he had an old Judge card. That was quite expensive for the time back then. So I was always on the lookout for anything that might be a little more affordable. I came across an old Judge, almost won one in an auction, but ended up the underbidder. And ultimately found out that he had a woodcut, which are those newspaper line drawings that were made out of a block of wood. Harper's Weekly was the newspaper. That was the most common one when it came to sports images. So in 1869, there was a woodcut produced by Harper's Weekly of the Cincinnati team, the famous first professional baseball team. It included Harry Wright and George Wright, and they were not super expensive, and they were out there. If you just had some patience, you could find one of those for a couple of $100 or so, 200, 300. Something like that. So I decided I was going to look for one of those, and I picked one up. It didn't take that long. And still keeping a lookout for other Cincinnati items, and I knew the Peck and Snyder, which was many consider the earliest baseball card. That was a CDV, which stands for Carta Vista. Carta Vista was the predecessor to the later 19th century, what would become cabinet cards. So Carta Vista was a real photograph mounted on a cardboard backing, but it was a thinner cardboard and a smaller dimensional cardboard than the cabinet card, quite a bit smaller, almost more like a postcard size. So I was aware there was Peck and Snyder 1869, again, Cincinnati Red Stockings image with Harry and George Wright. That was super expensive back then. That was a 5-figure card, which was almost unheard of. So I was always looking out for that, but didn't have too much hope of being able to afford it. But one day looking on eBay, I came across another 1869 Cincinnati team image. I believe it was the same image, but it was on a cover of sheet music. And back in the 19th century and the very early 20th century, there were some songs dedicated to baseball, and they came on sheet music. And a lot of times you can find an image of a ball player or a team on the cover of the sheet music. So this 1869 Cincinnati Reds club was on the cover of a sheet music album, and that one was not real expensive. I was able to pick it up. I thought it was a better option than the Harper's Weekly woodcut, so I got the sheet music and had that one in my collection for a couple of years. And then around 2011, much to my surprise, an opportunity came up to pick up one of those Peck and Snyder CDVs. And it was more affordable than usual. And the reason was the real photograph that would get mounted on the CDV was not mounted on the CDV. It had been removed, I guess, years ago, a century ago. And it was just the albumin photograph, which is extremely thin paper. So just a photograph with no mount behind it, kind of like a skinned old Judge almost, but much thinner than that even. And it was up for auction, and it sold for a fraction of what the CDV would have sold for, and I was able to pick it up. I think it was somewhere around $3,000 or $4,000 just for the skinned team photo. So I picked that up, and as was the case with all my stuff, I wanted to have it graded. And I was able to get, I think it was Global Authentication, GAI, at the time. I was able to get them to encapsulate it for me, just as authentic, and just label Peck and Snyder albumin photo, I think is what they put, Cincinnati Red Stockings, 1869. And that would end up being my final Harry Wright and George Wright image for the collection when I sold it in 2014. But an interesting story with those guys, and really happy to have once owned a Peck and Snyder, even if it was really just a partial Peck and Snyder. And the last player I'm going to talk about today, probably going to be the most interesting one, is Cy Young. So, of course, Cy Young has the Best Pitcher of the Year award named after him in Major League Baseball these days, and for many, many years now. The all-time MLB career leader in wins, losses, innings pitched, games started, a whole bunch of categories. The Cy Young rookie card was an impossibility going into the search. He appeared in the 1893 Just So Tobacco, which was a Cleveland Indians team series. Just So Tobacco was a tobacco brand back then, and they pictured cards. They were in the Cleveland area of the Cleveland ball players only. There was a Jesse Burkett in there, who was the other Hall of Famer that was in this set, and there were several other stars from that team that were not in the Hall of Fame. Every single Just So player from the set was known to have either one card, or I think one or a couple of them had two cards. And who knows how many players did not have any cards. There's no real way to be sure that those that are not checklisted in the catalog actually exist or not. So that Cy Young was never an option for me. That would have been a six-figure card even back in the early 2000s. So I tried to find the earliest one I can afford, and I settled on the Fan Craze, which was at that time cataloged as a 1904 issue. This was the American League set, of course, and Cy Young was there with Boston. So I picked up the Fan Craze, and that was a decent chunk of money back then, but nothing too crazy. And I would have that in my collection for a few years, probably till around 2009 or so. And I had chances, a couple of other opportunities came up. There was a 1894 or 1895 calendar that was up at a live auction one year at the National. It was a team composite image of the Cleveland club a couple of years later than the Just So Tobacco rookie card. and it had Cy Young on it. So I went after that. I was an underbidder on that. I didn't get it. Um, like I said, now fast forwarding to 2009. So I have a chance comes up. I see on eBay. It's not a card, but it's a pin back, and it's from a very popular, very rare series from 1898. They're called Cameo Pepsin pins, and they pictured not a team image, but the individual images of, I think it's over 100 players. It was quite a large set, especially for that time. And Cy Young is one of the players on there, and they were typically like sepia colored images. Some of them were more bold, some of them were lighter, kind of similar to the old judges, where the boldness of the image kind of determined the value of the piece more so than the actual technical condition grade. So anyway, on eBay, a Cy Young Cameo Pepsin pin came up, and I'm going to tell the whole more detailed story in its own episode in the future at some point, but I'm going to just abbreviate it to get through this today. But anyway, the pin came up for auction. The last day, it was within my price range. I put in a max bid. I ended up winning the pin on eBay, the Cameo Pepsin pin. And it was one of I believe three examples known, or at least three examples that would show up on the grading pop reports eventually. So I had one of the three Cy Young pins. It was 1898, and I figured that's probably the earliest thing I'm ever going to have. And I was very happy with that. And came across another studio cabinet from the early 1890s. It was a Ryder studio, also out of Ohio, as Cy Young, another cabinet card similar to the Just So Tobacco. But again, that would have probably been a six-figure card. I never had a chance, to really go after that one either. So I have my Cameo Pepsin pin, and 2011 or so, I had picked up, initially I picked up a Honus Wagner from the Sporting News Supplement series from 1899. It was the M101-1, giant oversized piece, and got it graded by Beckett and all. And I really liked those. And I came across a Cy Young that was available. Same thing, M101-1, Sporting News Supplement, in pretty good condition. So I decided, the Cy Young pin was the only pin back I had in my collection at that point. So I decided I was going to go after the Sporting News Supplement. It was a little more like a card, even though it was very large and oversized. So I ended up winning the auction, getting the Sporting News Supplement Cy Young, the M101-1, and ended up auctioning off the Cameo Pepsin pin. And the M101-1 Sporting News Supplement would end up being my final version of a Cy Young rookie in the collection when I sold everything. So that's going to wrap up, at least for now, the road to 310, how I assembled that collection. I really just covered mainly the high-profile Inner Circle Hall of Famers, the various items I had, what I began with collecting them, and then what the final version was, as well as a lot of the upgrades that I made over the years. At some point, I might go back and revisit a lot of the guys that I did not cover and talk about the items and the cards I had for each of them. And as time went on, how I built the final version of the collection. But anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed the series. I think there was a lot of interesting pieces. I think it kind of will make sense now after having heard all the stories. If you've listened to every one of the episodes, it'll kind of make sense why my opinion of this being the most diverse collection ever put together is probably a reality. It might have sounded in the beginning like bragging, but in the end, I think when you look at the big picture, I think it probably really was the most diverse ever put together. So anyway, hope you enjoyed today's episode. Have a great day, and I'll catch you guys again on the next one.